The tip today is something I've discussed before, but I haven't discussed this particular way of doing it, and that is how to neaten up that last bind-off stitch that looks so ugly. And this method is from Suzanne Bryan, or Knitting Suzanne, and I will have a link to her blog in my blog. She goes into great detail about why this works. She's a very analytical knitter, and her explanation is well worth reading. Mine is going to be a much briefer discussion. Now, let's look and see where we are now. I'm at the end of this row, and I'm going to work back, and then on the next row I'm going to bind off. And one of the things you can do to make your bind off neater is on the row before the bind off, that is the wrong side row going this direction, since I'm going to be binding off on the right side row, is if I work a few stitches in from where that last bind off stitch is by wrapping the yarn the wrong way. That's going to tighten up those stitches, and that's going to help make that last stitch neater. And again, read Suzanne's description for why this works. It's really excellent. So what I want to do is I want to wrap these 2 stitches, or maybe even 3 stitches, tighter by wrapping under the stitch rather than over the stitch. And why this is sometimes hard is you forget to do it. You remember you're going to bind off when you're starting your bind off row, and where you want to prepare for it is in the first 2 stitches on the wrong side row. So I'm going to go ahead and work the first stitch as normal. Okay? And instead of wrapping over the needle, I'm going to wrap under the needle. And I'll do, tighten it a little bit, do 2 stitches in. Yeah, well, just to emphasize it, I'll do 3. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull yarn from that stitch as well. So then I want to work as normal. And I'm going to turn, and I'm going to do my bind off as I normally would. Now when I get to those stitches that have been wrapped the wrong way, I need to work them through the back loop, otherwise they'll be twisted. Whoops, didn't mean to split that. And notice how those stitches are not oriented properly on the needle. I'm going to just use my needle tips and go in. And what I'm not going to do is, I'm not going to demonstrate you, is I'm not going to stick my needle in all the way and move it around. I'm just going to very lightly insert it just with the tips, because anytime you stick your needle in very far, it just makes that hole bigger. Okay? And here's my last stitch. It's oriented properly, and I'm going to put it on my needle and work it. And there you have it. A nice, neat last stitch. And I'll pull that through and cut it, and everything is good to go. Now again, in my blog entry, I will have the link to Suzanne's blog, so if you want a more complete description, that is the shorthand version of how to do this.